time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor while Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom.
That is a really kind of a disappointing sound. You're like, boom, ... I
was trying to decide if I wanted to go up at the end, but I went too high in the middle, so I couldn't.
And then you just kind of went boom.
Then it died off. It was a dud. This is the show where we wake up with a Saturday morning sun, plop down on the living room floor with a big bowl of sugary cereal, and watch all your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris. I just want to make up for the boom. The really lackluster boom.
I'll just shout the rest of the episode.
There you go.
And this morning, we watched Turbo Teen.
And this was suggested by our listener, Ryan, at RJNC on Twitter. So thank you, Ryan.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks for being patient, because we've had so many requests all backed up, and we still have a ton. We're not even through a quarter of the requests we have sitting right now. So thank you, everyone, for being patient with us. We got a lot to get through.
Absolutely. So Turbo Teen ran from 1984 to 1985. This was produced and created by Ruby Spears Productions, which is Joe Ruby and Ken Spears, also responsible for Centurions, Mega Man, and even the good guy doll animation sequence of one of my all-time favorite horror movies, Child's Play.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
interesting.
They've done some neat stuff. And then they did this.
They did Mega Man?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, they were partially responsible for. I mean, that was Mega Man was them, Capcom, and some other studios.
Oh, okay, but then they did this.
Yeah, it was funny because when I looked on the Wikipedia of Ruby Spears, this was not even mentioned. It was
that's sad.
They've done works like this and this and this.
They didn't even want people to know that they made it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
This was only one season, 13 episodes on the ABC network. For a short synopsis, Brett Matthews crashed into a science lab where a top-secret transfer ray was being developed. Now he has the ability to turn himself into a car whenever his body temperature reaches a certain level.
There was a lot of coincidences that had to fall into place for that to happen, you know?
For this whole show to work out, it's reliant on coincidences.
Exactly.
And ice cream.
Every plot point. Yeah, and ice cream.
So who are some actors?
Cold drinks.
Cold anything. Who are some actors that played in this one?
So our actors, we have Brett Matthews, a.k.a. Turbo Teen, was voiced by Michael Mish, who only has a few cartoons on his resume, and that's about it. He stopped acting in 1993, with the most notable cartoon that he worked on being Dennis the Menace, and that being his final foray into acting in any sense. He's disappeared from there. He's not dead. He just stopped.
He may have transformed into a car.
Yeah, and just drove away.
Yeah, off into the sunset.
The character of Alex was voiced by T.K. Carter, who's mostly just done television and sitcom kind of acting. Though he also had a role in John Carpenter's The Thing, which you bring up because you just watched it.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
I thought I'd bring it up. I don't remember the name of his character, and I don't think it was probably a main character, but...
What was the actor's name?
T.K. Carter.
He was probably the chef then.
That might be it.
Cool. That's interesting.
The character of Patty was voiced by Pamela Hayden. Also hasn't done a whole lot, but she has voiced several characters on The Simpsons, including Milhouse. Yeah. The character of Dr. Chase, voiced by Pat Fraley, and the character, the Dark Rider, voiced by Frank Welker. Both of those two have come up so many times in Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom that we don't really need to introduce them. If you've heard past episodes, you have heard us talk about them. Pat Fraley has been on a lot of our episodes, but Frank Welker has probably been in at least half of our episodes. And it's, I just listened to a podcast the other day. It was Nerdist. I don't listen to other podcasts, but I do listen to this. And they had on Billy West. They're just kind of talking about his career, about things in general. And I guess a lot of these guys are good friends, like Robert Paulson Big friend of Billy West and stuff. They collaborate a lot. But he was talking about his process of doing different voices that you can find. You know, there's so many chambers in your body and your sinuses and your lungs that you can learn to use to create new noises and new sounds. And he said the only person that's really mastered it is Frank Welker.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh yeah. He's like, I can't tell you where Frank gets some of the voices he does, but man. And yeah, I agree. Like, Frank is probably the most talented voice actor I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, knowing all the voices that he does, like, you know it when you hear it now, but it's not that they sound the same at all.
Except he did a voice in this one that was very reminiscent of another one.
Yes, this
but
one,
in general, yeah.
I immediately know what you're talking about. But yeah. And then Pat Fraley was, I think, most famous for Krang on Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, he's been in a lot too, but Frank Welker, definitely the standout.
Yeah, absolutely. For a few tasty marshmallows out of our big bowl of Turbo Teen cereal, honestly, this was a stretch.
Is it tasty? Like,
these are...
Is it really tasty? Is it more bran flakes and you mistake a raisin for a marshmallow and you bite into it and you're like, oh,
raisin, what are you doing in here? Ugh. Yeah, so here's some raisins in this cereal. The car from Turbo Teen that Brett turns into is very similar to a third-generation Camaro Firebird mix. And for any car people, they'll know what I'm talking about. I'm not a car person, so I barely know what I'm talking about, but I trust the internet.
There we go. That's probably smart.
Yeah,
and
of
safe.
Course. Yeah, always. So also, there was a webcomic named Teen Boat that ran for a short time with a teenager who could turn into a small yacht.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's awful. Oh man. That is somebody completely out of ideas.
But I'm
just
hoping,
reaching for whatever.
I'm hoping that they were parodying this.
I hope so.
I don't know that for sure, but I'm hoping they were.
Teen Boat? Jesus Christ.
Also, there was a skit on Robot Chicken that honored this too.
I did see that because when we were trying to find the episodes, I could barely find these episodes, but I could find Robot Chicken parodies.
Oh, of course.
That was way easier to find.
And lastly, the most interesting marshmallow / raisin about this series is that someone thought this was a good idea. To me, that was the most interesting.
That is an interesting fact to consider, is that somebody thought this would be a good cartoon.
Imagine the boardroom meeting where this was thought up. Like, how do you pitch this?
Not well.
Because it's like, what would you even say? It's like a cross between Knight Rider for the kids and then David Cronenberg's The Fly, where he gets mixed with another. So what do you?
Or maybe it's like, oh crap, was Transformers even out yet?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, maybe they were like, oh, like Transformers, like kids love Transformers, so let's have a guy, a teenager turn into a car instead of a robot, because kids aren't robots, but kids can be teenagers. So there we go. That's how we'll relate it.
Whoa, man. Yeah. So, do you have any memories of this show?
I actually do.
Really?
I do remember this show. I vaguely remember seeing it, but I didn't know anything about it other than this kid turned into a car, and that it was kind of creepy looking.
Oh my gosh.
And that's it. Like, as soon as this was suggested, it sounded familiar. I looked it up. I saw a picture of the teenager, like himself, and immediately had the image of my mind of, like, I just saw this image of him on all fours with tires for hands and feet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so I did see the transformation when I was a kid. I didn't know anything else about it. So, and I should preface too that because we are probably gonna say some interesting things about this show, but just so everyone's aware, our listener Ryan, who picked it purely because he said the transformation freaked him out. So, like, it wasn't like, this is my favorite cartoon of all time and I want you to do it, because then I would feel really bad about the things I'm probably going to say.
I had never heard of this show, period, like, let alone seen it. I don't remember the transformation scene. I feel like that would have scarred me had I seen this as a kid. And maybe not scarred me because I was watching a ton of horror movies, but that would have fit right in with the wheelhouse that I was already in of horror movies. It was, he's an abomination, especially when his face stretches out into the
it's
the
so
front
gross.
bumper, that is the weirdest part.
It's the weirdest part to me was like the back, because they would always zoom in on this dude's as it would elongate into the back of a car, and then when he was transferring back, they would always zoom in on that part too, so you're looking like right at the crack of his butt. And I'm like, man, like, could you get any more weird with this cartoon?
Yeah.
Like, it's already creepy.
This show was pretty obscure, so it was difficult, like you said, to find any episodes. So
Oh my God,
this time
yes.
we
Jeez.
generally, I mean, people who have heard other episodes, we do 3 typically. But
Yes.
because this one was so hard to find, we scoured the internet. We looked at the whole internet and
All of it.
all of the internet, and there were only 2 episodes that we were able to find.
Yes.
And so that's what we're going to do, is 2 episodes today.
Luckily, one was the first.
Yeah, thankfully it was a first, because that's how we like to start it. So let's jump into the first episode, and then I think the other one was the highest rated episode.
It wasn't,
Oh,
but it was a popular one. It wasn't the highest, but it was up there,
okay. Well,
which wasn't very high anyway.
but by default, the second one's going to be the highest rated episode because it's all we got.
Right.
It wins by default. So we have the first episode and then whatever other episode we were able to find. But it was a really funny one, so I'm glad that we did.
Right.
But okay, the first episode is Turbo Thieves, Season 1, Episode 1. I don't have a synopsis of it, but really, it kind of in the title where there's a couple of goons who steal, I guess, the plans or the write-up for Brett Matthews as Turbo Teen. And
Right.
they're trying to get rich off of it by finding him to kidnap him. So they are the Turbo Thieves.
I'm really confused by the public perception of Turbo Teen, because like in the show they make it sometimes seem like Turbo Teen is this known thing. Like people will see the car going by and they're like, "Oh, it's Turbo Teen."
Yeah.
But then other things they say make it sound like it's a secret and that nobody actually knows, and they're trying to keep it a secret. And I'm like, And in this episode too, like I got the vibe of both of those things, and it was just completely contradicting everything. And
Yeah.
I was super confused.
I think the commonality is that most of the public, the majority of the public, does not know that Turbo Teen is also Brett Matthews. They think that he
Okay.
drives that car, but they do not know that he turns into that car.
Okay.
That's something that the doctor and his close friends know.
So you think that most people know Turbo Teen exists, but as a car, and don't know that when they say Turbo Teen, they literally mean a teen.
I guess so. I don't know.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it is very strange, and it seems like they kind of make it up as they go in a lot of this.
Yeah, I got that feeling too.
But you know what? I'm going to say it right off the bat before we start reviewing the episode, is that I really enjoyed the show. And I'll tell you why as we go through it.
Oh my God. My eyes just got big. I know
Yeah.
you can't see it, but
As much crap as I'm going to talk about it, and there is going to be crap, like I had a lot of fun.
oh my God.
Okay, so in this episode, it opens in the strangest way, and this is already, I knew this was going to be...
Yeah, this creeped me out.
This is going to be Terabad, was that we get the car, and we've got an unknown guy and an unknown girl sitting in this car, and they're watching
and a dog.
and a dog, and they're watching a drive-in movie. And then I think one of them spills like the ice drink on the car.
Yeah.
And that's immediately when we find out that, what turns Turbo Teen, it's not something he can do at will. What turns him back into Brett is a cold substance. Anything. It doesn't have to be
Cold
ice
temperature.
or water. It just has to be cold. Yeah, he has to get cold. He turns back into him, and then I would think that I didn't know what was going to happen exactly with his friends as they were sitting in him, but
Like if they would get crushed.
yeah, but Alex, the other guy, he jumped out, and then Patty
The
just
girl
kind of
just
stayed in
stayed.
there, and she was just kind of sitting on his back when he came
Yeah.
through. I didn't know if they were going to like fuse together or something, but fortunately, she didn't lose legs or anything. She was
I was
just
like, she's going to get smashed.
yeah, she was just sitting on top of him. I guess they snuck into the theater so they could get a free ticket, so they didn't have to pay for Brett also.
Yeah. They
That's kind of what they hint at.
Brett just beat the car. so they could just pay for 2 and not for 3.
Alex, the other guy, is kind of a mechanic, and then the girl is like a reporter for the high school newspaper or something.
Yeah, slash cheerleader slash love interest.
Oh, yeah.
Of some sort for Brett.
See, I thought that she was his girlfriend until the next episode that we watched, and then I was confused. But
for me, and I honestly appreciated this in that they made it seem like it's an unspoken relationship. Like they both obviously have feelings for each other, but they didn't label it. It seems like we are those outsiders because you always knew those people, like especially in high school, that you knew were into each other, but they just never would talk about it with each other. And you're like, if you would just say something, you'd figure it out and you could be happy and stuff. So to me, I feel like that felt kind of realistic. And it felt realistic for me because I was in that situation a lot too. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, but I could totally tell you that this is probably 100% unintentional on their part.
Yeah.
Like it worked out that way, but I don't think they meant it to be like that. But yeah, I think they like each other, but they just never really, they haven't had that conversation yet.
So they like each other, but they don't like each other.
I think they like each other, but haven't told each other that they like each other. So they think they like each other, but they like, but they don't know they like, but that they like.
So, of course. So neither of them checked.
Like, totally.
So neither of them checked yes or no. They're just kind of in between.
Right.
As far as the other's concerned.
They haven't swiped either way on Tinder.
Got it.
Yeah.
Since Tinder did not exist back then.
Right, exactly.
So what happens with these thieves is they steal those plans, like I was saying earlier, and then they come after Brett. So many weird things happen once this part starts, and they kind of start chasing him down. First of all, like he tries to set a trap for them by turning into a car and parking himself outside of his house.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's fair. And then this other guy, I can't remember the bully's name, but this guy who doesn't like Brett in high school.
Yeah, and wants the girl, wants Patty.
It's like Tip or Trip or something. And
something dumb.
Yeah, and so he comes with his friends to vandalize what they think is Brett's car while Brett is asleep. Brett, as the car, is asleep.
He's asleep, yeah. You can hear him barely snoring through the radio.
Yeah. And then, so what Trip, I guess, he opens the hood and he crosses some wires, I guess. That's what he says.
So here's the thing, is if you watch it, he pulls something out and tosses it away. But when Alex fixes them later, he's like, oh, just these wires are crossed. And fixes it. And I'm like, no, the animation, that dude pulled something out and threw it away. So I'm like, so when he turns back into a person, does that mean he's missing like an organ or part of his brain or something?
Right.
Like,
what happened
what's
to
the
my
equivalent?
other kidney? Yeah.
Yeah, right. What's the human equivalent? There's another scene too where he gets a flat tire as a car, and I'm like, oh, dude probably just tore the crap out of his hand, and then he immediately turns back into a person and he's fine. And I'm like, what? No, like you can't do that. There's got to be some sort of give and take there.
Well, in the next episode, it comes up a little bit, but I'll talk about that when we get there. Yeah, they're setting all these traps, and then since Brett is unable to turn his engine on, he starts getting towed by the actual criminals. Right. Because the other guys go after Trip and his friend because they're mistaken as to who the thieves actually were.
The plan was he would wait until the thieves were coming up, and then he would honk his horn, and everyone would run out and grab him.
Right, like nobody's watching him. They're just listening.
Has the doctor and somebody else in a vehicle like a block away or something, and then he has Alex and Patty waiting inside like the garage, and he's like out in front. So yeah, the dude comes over, messes up the car, so he can't turn his engine on and honk the horn.
Right.
So the real thieves take him, but Doc and the one guy go after the teenagers that mess with the car, thinking that's the thieves, and he gets towed away, and Alex and Patty completely miss it because they're waiting for the honk. And the best part, though, of this whole thing was before this all happened, Alex and Patty are waiting in this garage and look like they've been waiting for a while, and then Alex is just like, so what's the plan again? Like, why have you been waiting there this whole time if you don't even know why you're there?
Right.
Like, oh my God. It was just, yeah.
So Brett starts getting towed away by the actual criminals, and then he manages to free himself, but Patty gets in the way and is then kidnapped. So then it's damsel in distress, and they have to go rescue her. And for whatever reason, well, no, I know the reason, I guess, and it makes sense in a way. The criminals take Patty out to their yacht by getting in a rowboat and taking it out there because they're like, no way he can get us in the water. He's a car. And this is the best and worst part of this episode, where Alex and Brett, they see this little rowboat, this wooden rowboat, and they're like, all right, we'll just get over there in that. I'm like, okay, so Brett's gonna, touch the water, get cold, and turn back before he goes over there. But no, that's not what happens. What happens is, as a car, he gets inside this little wooden boat. A car is like 1.5 to 2 tons of normal
right.
vehicles. So that would destroy that little boat. But they're just fine, just like going in that boat. Oh man, they get over there. The dog is really the hero of this episode, I guess. I mean, he trips up the villains. But then they go somewhere else.
They end up in a mansion or something?
Yeah, somehow. And then what's weird is this mansion staircase is so wide that
the car can
drive up the staircase too.
And it happens in the next episode too.
I know, like they just have the widest stairwells.
Right. This car keeps ending up in houses and buildings and does no damage to anything.
No.
It can drive through every room through the stairs and not screw anything up.
And drive through a mall and not hurt anybody.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I
forgot. It went through a mall for a long time in this episode.
Was that this episode?
I think it was this one, yeah. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But anyway, at some point, a mall was driven through.
Right.
And, you guys know what's going to happen. He's going to save the girl. They're going to go to the beach afterwards and have a cookout with hot dogs and milk.
Yeah.
What? You caught that, right? Like, they're cooking hot dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, pass the milk. And I'm like,
no, well,
what?
He's like, pass the oil. I mean, milk. They're making bad jokes about him being a car. Which means, so if he's talking about oil at all, that means as a car, he has to ingest oil in some way. Does that stay in his body? How does that process?
I don't want to know. Like,
and does he need? I guess he doesn't need gasoline. I mean, I'm guessing he can spin his own wheels as hands and feet.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. There's so many questions.
I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of questions brought up by this. I don't know. And honestly, there's so many even weirder things about this. Whenever he turns into a car, he sounds like he's having an orgasm that he doesn't want. He starts shaking. He's like, it's so weird
because it's always an accident when he turns into a car.
It's so creepy. And oh my God. And one thing that annoys me is these things that they keep saying. So they're trying to remind us constantly, even though we see it constantly, that Brett turns into a car.
Right.
Because he constantly keeps saying, it's not easy being a boy in a car. And I'm like, I get it. Fuck off.
Brett, we know. Shut up.
We know you're a car. And Alex is always saying, be cool. Constantly. And I'm like, ugh. Brett doesn't just turn into a car. He managed to turn this 20-minute episode into what felt like an hour. Oh my God. It felt like it took so long to get through this.
It was strange, but I enjoyed it in a way that I was like, how ridiculous can this get? And every time I thought it had reached its limit, it would surpass that. And I was like, oh my gosh, they don't even care anymore. They are just doing whatever they want to.
Yeah, pretty much.
My question also was, I think the beach party was Tripp's party and Brett was not invited, but Brett just went anyway. He showed up at the end. He's like, all right, party time.
I think because they were kind of sitting off by themselves. I think they wanted to go, but since they weren't part of Trip's thing, they're just like, we're going to go do our own thing in the same place and just make it awkward for everybody.
Yeah, because we're not at your party. We're over here on this side of the
We're having our own party with hot dogs and milk.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you got?
Who wants to come over to this party?
Trip's over there with like brats and burgers and some beers. And he's like, we got dogs and milk, bro. And Trip's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
So I guess let's go ahead and jump into the next episode that we watched. Well, the next and last episode that we watched, because this is all that exists in the world anymore.
Yeah.
And because there's no VHSs or DVDs
Nothing.
that were ever made of this. Like, I don't know where this exists as a whole anymore in the world.
Do you get the feeling that the world was trying to forget this show?
I do. I feel like they were trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think, and I feel like the internet even was like, we got to get rid of this.
And
Like,
we found the last remnants of what this is, an endangered cartoon. Like, it is about to be extinct.
I found some websites that had it listed, but like the episodes weren't there anymore. Like they even had like find it on Amazon and it was no longer there. So it's like these places had them at one time and it was like, we can't do it. So they just dropped it all. Like Amazon won't even touch it. Like nobody has copies of this show anymore. It's crazy.
And Ruby Spears' production has shut down. So maybe they destroyed all the old footage. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it's like that videotape from The Ring. Like you got to destroy it or else it's going to kill people. Like,
or else you might turn into a car next.
Oh, God, no. At least I won't damage my house because apparently you can just drive through and be fine.
As long as you have stairs that are wide enough.
Right.
So the next episode we watched for today's show was Dark Rider and the Wolves of Doom. Season 1, episode 8.
Which is going to be the new name of my metal band.
You know what? I loved the name of this episode. And I
Dark Rider and the Wolves of Doom.
Coming into it, I thought it was going to be something much different. I thought the Wolves of Doom was like an awesome code name for like a crew of like
henchmen,
motorcyclists or something who were in vehicles also.
Something cool. Yeah.
I was so wrong.
You were very wrong. Yeah. That was as wrong as you could get.
Yeah, I was the opposite of right.
Yeah.
So in this one, Dark Rider captures Monique's father, Dr. Fabro, and his formula that can cause dogs to regress to their primitive state in his latest plan to capture Brett Matthews. Oh.
This episode, man. I
didn't understand what the formula was supposed to do. Was it supposed to like turn rabid dogs good and then it was just used in reverse?
I don't think they really figured it out themselves. So the formula that I don't know. So the formula that Dark Rider.
Yeah, let's talk about the elephant in the room real quick.
Yes.
So Dark Rider is Dr. Claw.
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
pretty
way
much the same.
That this wasn't the first thing that Dr. Claw at first was Dark Rider, a villain in Turbo Teen, and then he evolved into Dr. Claw.
You know, it's a great villain voice. Okay, so then my theory is going to be that he did Dr. Claw, and the guys of Turbo Teen are like, yeah, we don't give a just do that Dr. Claw voice. That's cool. And that was it.
And it works perfectly for Claw, but it does not work for Dark Rider. He does not look like he would have that voice.
No, not
he doesn't
at all.
have a mask or anything. He's just a dude with a fedora and sunglasses.
Yeah, and who
drives a monster truck.
Yeah, and one of those jackets that, like, you know, somebody will wear to a park and then open it and flash you and then run away.
Yeah.
Like this. Oh, my God.
He's going to show you his Dark Rider.
Gross.
But so
his exhaust pipe.
So he's the worst villain because he's sneaking around. He's trying to be inconspicuous in a monster truck. And he actually, he succeeds at it. Like, he follows them around.
Nobody notices this monster truck just following people around.
It's so weird. Like, he stands out like a sore thumb, but no one notices.
Yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, that's not anything new,
I would love to know more about this villain, but this is all we get, and I'm more confused than I ever was. And this episode had the weirdest things. Go on. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that serum that they were talking about. So the doctor that has it, that Dark Rider is stealing it from, used to his own ends to go after Turbo Teen.
Right.
The doctor says it turns dogs into wolves. which is not what happens. All it does is make them have like rabies.
Yeah.
Like they get them, they don't turn into wolves. I was expecting some sort of physical transformation. They look no different other than they growl and their eyes get kind of goofy.
Yeah, they're just mad dogs.
They're just really, they just get really annoyed with you and try to bite you and stuff.
Not even really try to bite you. They're just vicious. Like,
they
don't
just
really
growl and
attack
chase
anybody.
you. So that's right. They didn't really bite anyone. They just growl and run around and be jerks.
I guess they did bite. I think their dog's name was Rusty. He bit Turbo Teen.
Oh, he's biting the tire.
He was biting the tire and I think the seat.
Oh, okay, that's right. But he didn't bite people.
No,
he only bit cars.
He bit car people.
Car people.
Yeah.
As all this stuff was like before a lot of this took place, there's like a school dance, and we were about to get a mad dance off because Trip was like, "Yo, like Matt, you can't dance," and Matt's like, "Yeah, I can," and
he's like, "What are you, chicken?" And he's like,
"Oh, I'll show you my moves."
So he starts breakdancing, and then
by breakdancing you mean just spinning around on his back.
Yeah, that's breakdancing.
And that is all he did, and that. I guess spinning around makes you turn into a car also.
Well, he got really warm from all the action, and then he started transforming into a car, so he had to kind of moonwalk out back. And I don't even think he was moonwalking. I think he was just straight walking.
He was just straight up falling around. It was falling around without actually hitting the ground.
Just falling with style. And he went outside to make the transformation and then continued dancing as a car.
As the car while people watched.
Yeah.
Like tons of people watched.
And there were no questions about it. They're just like, okay.
And then the car falls into a pool. And
which,
then,
of course, changes him back.
And he swims out. And that one girl, Monique's just like, oh, where'd that car go? Weird. I'm like, what? Like, did you not? Oh, my God.
Yeah, and the mall, I think that comes up in this episode too.
That must have been this episode, yeah.
Yeah, they're running from Dark Rider, and they hit like a patch of something, slick.
Oh, yeah.
And then start slipping through the mall, and then can't get traction on the tiles, so they're just like, everybody, well, the car is just screaming, everybody look out, so it doesn't hit anybody, and then he just happens to go straight into an ice cream shop that has no one in it, which is false already because everyone loves ice cream, so there would be a ton of people in there.
Yep.
And so they go in there with the ice cream shops empty. Even the clerk's not even there paying attention or something.
Yeah, I don't know where he was, but he wasn't there.
No, and so
but he shows up after the fact.
But he knew a car came through because he's like, "Hey, where'd the car go?"
If he definitely was not in the scene when the car got there.
Mm-mm.
So he didn't see the car. So how did he know the car was there?
Yeah. So Brett, of course, hits the ice, a big like bin of ice cream, falls over, makes him cold, turns back
into a person.
Yep. And then they don't even like offer to pay for the ice cream. Alex just like, "Yo, just bill it to Brett."
Oh God.
Oh, what about the car gymnastics? You remember that?
I don't remember that.
Okay, he was on one of the roofs, and they're like, "Look out! Like, be careful, Brett."
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "Don't worry, Alex. Remember, I'm a gymnast at school." He leaps off of the building onto a crane hook, and then does like a flip, a car flip,
double, triple sow cow, something.
Onto another roof, I think, or I can't remember where he lands, but 5-star landing.
God, it's so bad. So the whole premise of this is that the Dark Rider wants to get his hands on Brett, aka Turbo Teen, and I think at first it seems like
he doesn't know.
Yeah, at first it seems like he doesn't, and then later it made me feel like he did.
Well, here's how he quote unquote figured it out, and this was fantastic. So he's chasing Turbo Teen as a car. Then he gets there, arrives, and just sees Brett, and is like, basically, "Where's the car?" And then he
that's right.
And then Brett runs off through a window, but he leaves his shoe because Dark Rider had thrown out like some spikes or a spike patch or something, and then. So Brett leaves his shoe, and in his shoe is a nail and a hole, and Dark Rider surmises that, you know what, there's no way he stepped on a nail. The only way this could have happened is if he was a car who turned back into a boy, and that's why his shoe has a hole in it. And
wow, he's very smart.
He is very astute, that Dark Rider.
Extremely clever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have figured that one out.
He put 2 and 2 together and came up with a 7. He somehow knew.
That's good.
In the weirdest way.
2 + 2 = 26.
Yeah, he got it.
That's pretty much what happened. So he kidnaps this girl, Monique.
Yeah.
And that he saw interacting with them. And, he follows her.
He kidnaps her father.
Yeah, he follows her to this lab because he's like, oh, I can use her. Follows her to this lab, sees her dad is the scientist doing things with dogs. But so then he goes in there, he's like, aha, and kidnaps her dad. And he's like, you're going to lure him here and blah, blah, blah. So then when he's talking to the doc about his plan, about changing these wolves or these dogs into wolves or whatever, even though they don't turn into wolves, the doctor and scientist dude goes, why? And I'm like, me too, doc. I'm wondering that too. And there's kind of a pause. And then he goes, to prove Brett is Turbo Teen. And I'm like, what? Like, how is turning these dogs rabid going to prove that he's Turbo Teen?
It would have been great if the doctor again was like, why? Again,
right? Why?
Those are the wolves of doom.
Yeah, it's just the dogs.
A bunch of stray dogs and
they get upset
and Rusty.
So then they try to trick Dark Rider again by, I don't remember exactly what their plan was, but somehow Patty and Alex really quickly found a life-size cardboard cutout of Turbo Teen and had it propped up outside to lure Dark Rider out and
Dark
trick
Rider
him.
absolutely fell for it.
Oh yeah.
It's the equivalent of, not the equivalent, but the idea was for it to be the equivalent of, when people are questioning whether Batman is Bruce Wayne and then Robin dresses up like Batman to throw everybody off so they don't suspect Bruce Wayne is anymore.
Right.
Except this would be like if Robin got a cheap cardboard cutout of Batman and stood it up outside and then someone looked outside and was like, oh no, there's Batman. So Bruce Wayne can't be Batman.
Right. Yeah.
This cardboard cutout proves me wrong.
Oh my God. So bad.
Oh,
and
man.
I mean, I don't really have much else to say about this episode. It's just,
there's not much to say.
It was all over the place. It didn't make any sense.
They jumped the shark a million times over.
They lined up several sharks and jumped over them all,
and
wearing sunglasses
with their car gymnastics.
Right? Oh my God! Oh man!
Well, Chris, it's about time we wake up our inner kids by putting their hands into bowls of warm water so that they can properly review Turbo Teen as their vehicle of choice.
It didn't make me turn into a car. It just made me pee my pants. But, dude, turning into a car sounds awesome, but it looks so gross. Seriously, I'm gonna have nightmares. Ugh. And it's not like the cartoon was that great. I got super lost with what was going on, and I got super bored. So I gave this show 1 bowl of disappointing turbo cereal out of 5, and now I have to go burn all of my Hot Wheels, cause cars creep me out. Thanks, Turbo Teen.
In life, there are many philosophical questions that we ask ourselves which are destined to remain unanswered. What is the meaning of life? Do we truly have free will? And why does Turbo Teen exist? What's stranger still is that I actually sort of enjoyed it. Please don't misunderstand, it wasn't very funny, very logical, or even very good. But, as a big fan of cheesy B movies, this absolutely falls into the so bad is good category for me because of how insanely ridiculous it was. I would give Turbo Teen 3 big bowls of oil slick cereal out of 5 and recommend it only if you enjoy gambling with the stinkiest of cheese. Like seriously, this is the Limburger equivalent of 80s cartoons.
Cheese. I'm sold.
I like stinky cheese. So do you have any final thoughts on Turbo Teen?
My final thoughts, I mean, they're kind of going to echo my inner kid just because it is bad. Like, it's really bad. But I think it's a lot of fun. I think what's great about it is I was looking forward to talking about it with you. So in that way, I gained my enjoyment out of it by kind of collecting ideas and thoughts on, wow, what am I going to say? Like, how can I talk about this show without cracking up? Because it was that ridiculous. This is something I think that if you watched it with a bunch of friends, like you had like a Saturday morning cartoon day or something, and then that was, boom. And then this show was one of them, just a little snippet of it even. People would be like, what the heck is this? This is insane. And I think it would just be a good forum for discussion on how crazy and just weird the 80s were. This is a good example of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like prime for like Mystery Science Theater 3000 sort of treatment. That people can a group can sit around and make jokes about it all day. Man, this is definitely that kind of show. As far as like technical things that I didn't really speak about too much, but the animation was really choppy. There's a lot of times where the audio wasn't really lining up really well with the characters. The plot was just all over the place and pretty much always relies on someone being kidnapped and in need of saving, sometimes multiple times in the same episode. The premise was interesting. I mean, it could have been kind of interesting.
I think it was kind of intriguing, and the idea that they threw in the caveat that he can't just turn into a car at will. This is something that's kind of out of his control to some degree.
It being temperature driven though, it was so weird.
I mean, that's weird because now he can never
go out in the summer or winter.
Right. He can't ever go swimming. Well, as a car, he can't go swimming, I guess.
That's true.
Presumably, he would never be able to stay in car form in the cold weather because he would just instantly turn back. Because of those weird things, it's like that just raises more questions than answers because it's like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Those aren't questions they ask themselves. They're just like...
Right. They're just like, nah. Like, if he gets sick and gets a fever, he's going to be a car until he gets better.
Yeah. If he's burning up, well, he's a car now.
And then when you go in that other limbo where you start getting the chills when you have a fever, then is he going to switch back and forth? Or is he still, because he still has a fever, does that keep him a car? I don't know these things.
What if one hand is like over a fire and one hand is in a bucket of ice?
Yeah, ice. Yeah, I don't know.
Does he like half transform?
Yeah. Oh, that'd be creepy.
Oh, that would be hideous. Then he would be like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly.
Yeah. So it was just, there's interesting aspects to it.
Yeah.
But the execution was just garbage.
Oh, yeah. No, the execution was bad. But it was so bad that it was a lot of fun.
It's interesting, though, because even when we get these really bad ones, it gives me a better way of gauging other shows in comparison. So I can be like, well, at least this wasn't as bad as Turbo Teen.
Yeah, yes.
So there is that. This gave me a better appreciation for Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, honestly. I think I liked this less than Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, and that was the first rating I gave a 1 to, I think, was that show.
I know that I liked this more than Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah, I think I do too, actually. I think they're tied for me.
Yeah?
Yeah. Ugh. Bad.
I don't know. It's a tough one. Tough call. Well, listeners, looks like our oil supply has now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. And next week, we'll be watching
The Archie Show, suggested via YouTube by Leslie Robinson.
Once again, I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
We'll see you next Saturday. Saturday.
Sunday. The Dark Rider and the Wolves of Doom take on Turbo Teen.
And the Wolves of Doom. That sounds amazing. I love that title. That's got to be our future band.
You'll pay for your seats, but you only need the edge.
Presented by Nerdsloth,
a place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.